What is up, guys? It's me, the AOE Double X Prince. I wanted to do an Undertaker video. I just didn't know what to talk about. Like, I already talked about the streak. I already talked about his runs as champion. I've done many things, and I was actually even thinking, but this did not work out just because of how long the video would have been and how much research I should have done. But I was thinking of doing ranking all the years of the Undertaker from 1990 to now, which is what We Are Pro Wrestling already did, and I recommend you guys to check those videos out. We Are Pro Wrestling is probably like the goat of the YWC. So if you guys want legit knowledge, talk about him. Um, but I did want to make an Undertaker video, and then I scrolled down and apparently they did a Brothers of Destruction documentary, and I was like, there's not that much to talk about when it came to the Brothers of Destruction. And lo and behold, I watched it, and it wasn't long. It was like 40 minutes, 30 minutes at best. It's not beer, just in case I get like a strike or anything. Here it's just mineral water. Relax. La Crocs. But anyways, I watched this documentary, Undertaker and Kane, and I kind of wish that Undertaker did this like now. Like he just sat there and just talked to people that he worked with. Over the years I always said like who was like the legit Undertaker rivalry? Like people say DX, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, but they only had great matches. It was a good story, but it wasn't like his definitive like arch nemesis. There was Mankind who could have easily top that list. Edge, Orton, Batista, to an extent, Brock Lesnar. Those guys were great, but nothing comes compared to that epic rivalry between Undertaker and Kane. Every time they had nothing for these guys, these these guys kind of had each other's backs to like kind of show you guys how great they were. They basically went through this whole storyline from you know Kane as Glenn Jacobs and Undertaker. Was like, how did that came about? Like, did he used to be a dentist or something? Because apparently that is how gimmicks work in WWE. Vince McMahon hears something that he used to do, and then he'll like use it to make a gimmick. That's how Fandango was created. He saw Chris Jericho as a ballroom dancer on Dancing with the Stars, and then he's like, I want to make a villain like that. Sure enough, it was Fandango, but yeah, it was very interesting. Like there was really no story as to like why they made him Glenn Jackson. They never brought up fake Diesel. Like when remember that when Kane was a fake Diesel, so they never brought that up. But Undertaker was already set. He was like the most established character of all time ever. He is my favorite wrestler of all time. Just the best big guy that like ever like wrestle, and he's like one of the most dedicated wrestlers of all time. And yeah, they talk about the match of him and Kane, like the story of how everything was created. Stuff you may have heard over the years, like how much they talk about it. They mainly focus a lot on like them as a tag team, which makes sense because this documentary is called The Brothers of Destruction. Um, so apparently the best form of the Brothers of Destruction was when Undertaker was still the American Baddest, not the Dead Man. And I gotta agree. I remember like the tag team division was dead around this time. To be fair, it was the invasion angle, which they never brought up at all. Like they never brought up like that they were part of the invasion, how dumb that shit was. But I mean, I respect that. Like they never brought up the DDP storyline, which, geez. Oh, to be fair, DDP's an AEW, so it makes sense why they didn't bring it up. Anyways, as that was going on, um, they kind of brought up how like I never was the biggest fan of the American Badass. Like honestly, I enjoyed how it started, and then it just got stale throughout the years. 2002 in particularly, Undertaker got stale. Like after his match with Brock Lesnar, he just wasn't the same. 2003 was honestly one of the weakest years of the Dead Man. Like they had nothing for this guy. Like at WrestleMania 19, he fought fucking Big Show and A Train. He got buried by Vince McMahon. Now, to be fair, that was part of the Kane storyline, but it was just nothing for this guy. Like he was facing Test. Like he was just bad. Like around this time, but he really enjoyed the gimmick, and I think it made sense for him to develop and become the American Badass in the beginning. After a while, it was gonna get stale. Obviously they didn't say that. But Kane was kind of like the reasoning for that return. Um, um, and they also talk about how he like 2003 was a bigger year for Kane. Honestly, Kane is gonna go down as the most underrated uh wrestler of all time. Like the most underrated world champion of all time. Yes, he was a shitty wrestler in 2010, but he was great at his promos. Like his promo work was on point. Like this guy doesn't get enough credit for promos, and everybody can agree that Kane is one of the nicest guys on the planet. Like everybody who's worked with the guy has told you, yeah, this guy is fucking awesome. He's funny. He's entertaining. He helps people out. Like and he's the mayor. So, Mayor Glenn Jacobs. So, anyone has always great things to say about Kane, but The Undertaker was kind of the reasoning for him. Like, he's like, I like him. I think he's a great talent, but this dentist character is not great. And I actually like how they went through the whole formation of Kane. Like, they actually draw out pictures of Kane. Like, he was originally supposed to wear a cape. Thankfully, that did not happen. He was not even supposed to wear a mask, but the whole burns and that's another thing that I've always wanted to be curious about. That is what I loved a lot when they brought up why he had like burned ashes. Like the idea was to make him think that his burns were like in his mind, which is a little bit silly now that you think about it, but it kind of made sense in Glenn's eyes, but to us it still was like but I'm glad that they actually like asked like why the fuck did they just have ashes on your face like yeah it was supposed to be burns but and I always agreed like a lot of people say like Matt man Kane should have never been on mask he should have never taken that mask off and I gotta disagree because Kane was also gonna get stale and 2003 was a great year for him like him it should have been Kane versus Evolution in 2003. That should have been the main storyline, not Triple H and Goldberg, because let's be honest, Goldberg was irrelevant as fuck around this time. And keep in mind, this is 2003 Goldberg. Like, that's how irrelevant Goldberg was. The biggest story was Evolution versus um, Evolution versus Kane, but eventually this all led to just them fighting each other. And even though it was unnecessary for them to repeat the story from WrestleMania 14, now it's WrestleMania 20, they're doing it again at MSG. It was the best thing they could have done to revitalize them as characters. Like this was a great way to send Kane packing for a little bit and then have the Undertaker return as the Dead Man. So that was just great. Like whenever these guys needed something, they had each other's back. That throughout the year, and to this day, I agree. The Undertaker's greatest rival is Kane, his brother. Like in kayfabe, like these guys committed to these characters, and it was just the best thing that could have ever happened to these two. Um, did Kane deserve to be like on the top? Yes, I actually do agree that they did make him a top player, just not on Raw or SmackDown. Remember when he was a top player in ECW? God, that was terrible. Honest to God, like ECW should have never existed. WWE ECW. Let's make that shit perfectly clear. It was just garbage. Sandman, Sabu, Dreamer, and well, Dreamer came back, but like everybody left. RVD. So it was just fucking soup, and they had to rely on Kane, Matt Hardy, Mark Henry. Remember that shit? I'm getting off topic, but I wanted them to bring up the story of their 2010 run. I remember the 2010 run. I remember the promos were great, but the matches were bad. But that wasn't their fault. They were just older. But they did a good job of making Kane a legit player, beating him 3 times. They never brought up the fact that the Nexus helped out Kane on the last match. I kind of wish they like actually had the balls to say like, what was the idea behind the Nexus helping you? They never brought it up. No, but yeah. And Kane even talks about the streak. Like when it ended, he thought that the ending was screwed up, or he actually was mad that that happened because he wanted to be the one to end the streak. Now, to be fair, when they fought each other the first 2 times, the streak wasn't really that big. So now that it's a big thing, it was like, yeah, it made sense for that to happen. There's many stories as to what is about the streak, like who was supposed to beat the streak, or was Brock Lesnar even supposed to win? Like, there's many, many, many stories. Like Paul Heyman has a version of the story. Vince has a version. Taker has a version. Brock Lesnar very quiet about that shit. So, and they ended up talking like the last thing they talk about was that crown jewel match, which is kind of like they had to talk about it. But Kane and Taker versus the DX, which is bad. It was just bad. I've actually to this day have never seen it like the fully. I've seen highlights of the match, and it is awful. Like what I've seen about it, like Triple H breaks his hip, Kane drops his mask, like oh my god, it was just terrible. And that was Shawn Michaels' comeback match. They should like honestly, Shawn Michaels actually has a lot of balls not trying to redeem himself. He didn't try to like, you know what? I'm gonna redeem myself. I'm gonna try to fight Daniel Bryan. I'm gonna try to fight AJ Styles. I'm gonna do something to redeem myself from that god awful match. But he's never done it. All power to Shawn Michaels, but Kane and Taker, despite like the bad matches that they've had, besides all the crazy stuff, they always had each other's back, and that was great. It actually did feel like they were brothers. Like they actually felt like they were real life brothers. That's what was so cool about this. I want to see more of the Undertaker do something like this. Like just this that should be like Undertaker and Rivals, like something like that. Like that should have been episode one. Then like the next time they do this, they do him and Stone Cold, maybe him and Mankind or Mick Foley, if you want to be more realistic about it. Um Now, obviously, we're not gonna get Randy Orton and the Undertaker in this ring. And I did see that one where they talk about the rivalry, where Randy Orton got a lot of shit for it because they didn't practice their Mania 21 match and stuff like that. Who else would I like to see the Undertaker like talk with? Like, I'm trying to think of some, cause like, I guess Shawn and Triple H. I actually want to see those two sit down and just talk. Shawn Michaels and the Undertaker. Yeah, I'm more curious about that one than I am for Triple H and The Undertaker. But yeah, I want to see that one. Undertaker and Shawn Michaels just sit down and talk. Because to be fair, like even to this day, they both admit that Mania 25 is one of the best matches of all time, not one of the best WrestleMania matches. So I want to see something more of this of The Undertaker do. If anything, these talks are more exciting than the actual wrestling right now. Like I will review Survivor Series if I get to it, but I'm not that excited. Like, I really don't give a shit. But yeah, I recommend you guys check it out. It's a nice documentary, just talking about Kane and the Undertaker. It is a really well done thing. It's just fun to watch Taker and like a bunch of old wrestlers just talk about like their memories of working together. So this was fun. Good job, WWE. They don't fail when it comes to their documentaries recently. Anyways, it's me, the ALE Double X Prince. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And until then, I'm out.